This is Yusef, and before I begin talking on what I'm going to talk about, I got to apologize. I did not get over to the shop to get on the computer. Actually shooting a commercial over there for the business, and actually took a longer time than I thought. This is working good enough where I can actually kind of vote and add to watch later, but when I get to the inbox, it'll just have the running spinning thing. So I can go on and see comments if I kind of get through the back door, if I go search my own videos, which probably it's harder to do than it was with the John Hodgwell channel. I don't think my name is in the tags. These videos, it doesn't need to be, but I could go through the back way and find them and look at the comments, but I wouldn't be able to comment back. It still just comes up error, which is better than it was doing before earlier. And I don't like to read a comment, and if there's something that if there's something where I think I should oppose it, or at least take it down after seeing it. If it's something vulgar, I don't want to see it yet until I actually have something to do about it. Or if it's an extremely nice complimentary comment, I don't want to. I actually like saying to people, "Oh, thank you," or "I value this. Please check out these other things." I appreciate it. I don't know if you can tell, I got a haircut from my niece, which it's good that my hair's slicked back because she got the sides and the back to about 1 centimeter, and the top of my hair is probably about 8 inches long. So it's good that it's kind of this fuzzy thing here. Tomorrow, I have to attend a few things for a birthday that if I were not to be there at the celebrations for this person's birthday would be very strange, and people would notice. This posting in my time, it's already tomorrow, so I'm speaking about tomorrow, but it's actually today. But it gets posted like 2 hours later, and I've quit changing the times because I'd always go back and correct for Chicago time. I'm not going to do that this time. Okay. What I've seen on this topic at hand. What I've seen that has been upsetting me is that people who, even Protestants, who I actually very much, the few Protestants on here that I actually really like what they have to say, I really agree with. They're more open-minded. They're not inconsistent, like let's say a Rob Bell, who basically says hell doesn't exist, or everybody will get out of hell, or everybody goes to heaven, which, there are people inside the Orthodox Church that say that in their private belief, monastics, I don't know if there's any current ones, but who did exist, who were not anathemized for their personal belief of saying, I believe the love of God is so great that people, even in the afterlife, with God's energies working on them, will eventually turn, because the image of God is not destroyed in man, will eventually turn towards God. But there will be a working in themselves, a changing in themselves, a progression in themselves, kind of like when originally purgatory was expressed, which was it was a shoot off of an Orthodox idea. Was as you are approaching heaven, if you're approaching perfection and you still have human traits and stuff, you have your fallen sinful nature, and you're progressing towards God, they kind of get, it's not that God just takes these things out of you and you're no longer you actually painfully change towards that, like, working out, getting into a new body, feel the pain, you actually go through the motion. So it's your will, but you reacting to God and coming basically at your own time to God. The original idea of purgatory was that of the progression towards God, that there's still somewhat of a, you have to get over your own demons, that God enlightens you, and you know, it's synergistic, basically. And with the Orthodox idea that even if you take the book of Revelations, well, hell doesn't exist yet, it will exist in the future, as some Orthodox people say. I believe that's the main stance of the Russian Orthodox Church, that it doesn't exist now, but it will exist, of what is talked about as the final hell. And there are some, as I said, some people hold to this almost universal salvation, but it's not like, oh, everybody's just saved as they are. The way Rob Bell got to that is he just wanted a user-friendly gospel, something friendly to America, and didn't take anything from his own tradition, didn't come to Eastern Orthodoxy, and he just basically took out any of the parts of the gospel that were offensive to cushiony Americans and said, okay, here it is, and this is emergent Christianity. And the dogs are going wild. Well, a similar thing is happening with Israel. And this is with Christianity and Judaism, because for the longest time, Jews were not, the Talmudic Jews that were to come in the second and third centuries AD, were not Zionistic. They weren't Zionists. There was a little faction after Julian the Apostate that tried to go back and rebuild the temple, but that fell apart, and they said, no, God gives us the land and takes away the land. He's given us the land and taken away the land many times in the past. Babylonian captivity, the trial in Egypt before that. So no, it's not our land. And there were Palestinian, or Jews that had lived in Palestine for a long time. Even after the Bar Kokhba wrote, many returned. Zionism wasn't a big force, and there was debates on both sides, pro and against Zionism in the Jewish community, and one wasn't shunned and the other, I mean, they were both two valid opinions that you hold, basically up until 1947. Christianity has not been Zionist, has basically seen ourselves as the ones holding the faith, the church, and that we can be recognized as when God's speaking to the assembly in the past, although under the new covenant, but listening to the God that created the world ex nihilo, and that spoke by the prophets to prophesy the Messiah. And they didn't take such a hard sola scriptura view of the Old Testament. This would develop later, and Zionism would catch on in Christianity maybe even earlier than in Judaism in some cases. But now Christians have been speaking this one idea, which is put forth by Joan Peters, which wrote a book, Time Immemorial. And the reason I'm speaking on this, because you know, looking at stuff in Syria, and I will get more videos up on Syria, you can't help but look to Palestine too and see the things going on there. And I felt I need to speak on this after hearing many people comment and say, well, what's in Israel's best interests and things like this, and then stumbling upon people who say what Joan Peters said, which is that there was no Palestinians in Palestine. There was no Arabs in Palestine, which we know that's a lie because of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Nativity, and the Muslims that held the keys for the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that these Christian communities in Palestine have existed for over 1,000 years, and many of them go back even to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th centuries. And the Muslims have lived there since the conquest. Now, there's the theory that, or there's this mythology that said, well, there was radio broadcasts saying the Jews were coming to kill everybody, and that all the Palestinians fled the land and the Jews came in. So when the Jews came in, there were no Arabs in the land, which is a lie. But in Joan Peters' book, she also says, well, at the same time that these Jews came in, that these other Arabs from the Jordan, which was one time considered kind of Palestine, and Syria and Iraq, they all flooded in, so it was simultaneous immigration. And I hear Christians repeating this. Now, Norm Finkelstein, who is, both of his parents were in, one was in Majdanek, the other one was in Auschwitz, and every single other member of his family, every single member of his family on his mother's side and his father's side were killed by the Nazis. He soundly refutes Joan Peters. But you say he is an anti-Zionist. This is a Jew that sympathizes with Palestine. He must be self-hating. Yehoshua Porath, right-wing political, right-wing politician in Israel, supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu, says about Joanne Peters that it's disgusting and despicable that she wrote this book. Now, this is an American. This is an American that visits Israel. This is not an Israeli, somebody who was there. This is not somebody who's related to any of the fighters. And you hear Christians repeating this lie that Joanne Peters says in From Time Immemorial. And when I say Christian, I mean Western Christians, because the Eastern Orthodox have always known we've had people there. And it's quite disgusting that people try to boil this, saying, oh, it's fundamentalist Islam versus Judaism. Well, it's very suspect to where the State of Israel basically pushed the Palestinians to. The Negev they took, which is a desert. Where they pushed them to? Gaza. So the Palestinian Arabs, and it was renamed, now let's get this thing straight. The Philistines were gone after Nebuchadnezzar. It's around the 5th century BC. No more mention of Philistines. Gone. As a people, as an identity, gone. And they were not a Middle Eastern people. They were a Mediterranean people from Magna Graecia, a Greek people that landed on the seas probably around the same time as when the Exodus was supposed to happen. There are mentions of them earlier, but we think, modern scholarship thinks that that was a different tribe also, when looked back on, called the Philistine. So this Greek culture that got basically done away with when Nebuchadnezzar came through, and that was the end of the Philistines. So fast forward to after the Bar Kokhba Revolt, 137. The Romans rename Judea and the Galilee and Decapolis and the areas in the Levant as Philistia, Palestine, because they couldn't pronounce Philistia, land of the enemies of the Jews, just to piss them off. Now the Arabs and the Christians that were there, who a lot of them were converts from Judaism, many of them were Arabs that came in different places and lived there for hundreds of years, but yet the Jews section them off in Gaza to make them appear as the ancient enemy. Because why never invade? So they have a constant enemy threat so they can build up military. And the fact that our brothers in Christ who recognize the hypostatic union and Trinity will act as if none of the Palestinians are Christian. Act as if Lebanon was never a Christian land. And act as if Israel had no part in the destruction of Lebanon or the horrible atrocities in Palestine. And we get a one-sided view. In American media, we get one-sided. And I've heard these theories not only come from America, but Australia. It's not surprising from Australia, because lately they've been backing Israel too. But I can remember being, when I was an Anglican, the very, these Messianic Jews pushing for this and basically viewing, and this was a very Catholic-Anglican church that respected the Orthodox in many ways, basically seeing the Arabs as dogs and trash. So that kind of strikes a bone with me myself. When are Western Christians going to wake up to this? I mean, they need to go outside their comfort zone of CNN. I don't, oh, well, CNN's liberal. Oh, you know what? It's still on the side of, every American news outlet is still on the side of Israel and won't show both sides. And sometimes there's not two sides to one story, because Israel is categorically wrong. I'm sorry, it is. And they've rejected two-state solutions ever since. Now I've run out of time here, but I would like to actually show that they were the bad guys in the '67 war. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. Have a blessed fast period. Chill over there for the business, and actually took a longer time than I thought. I'm getting this is working good enough where I can actually kind of vote and add to watch later, but when I get to the inbox, it's still these videos. It doesn't need to be, but I could go through the back way and find them and look at the comments, but I wouldn't be able to comment back. It still just comes up error, which is better than it was doing before, earlier. This is Yusef, and before I begin talking on what I'm going to talk about, I got to apologize. I did not get over to the shop to get on the computer. Actually, shooting a commercial, and I don't like to read a comment, and if there's something that if there's something where I think I should oppose it, or at least take it down after seeing it. If it's something vulgar, I don't want to see it yet until I actually have something to do about it. Or if it's an extremely nice complimentary comment, it'll just have the running spinning thing. So I can go on. I can go on and see comments if I kind of get through the back door. If I go search my own videos, which probably it's harder to do than it was with the John Hodge channel. I don't think my name is in the tags.